General Secretary Gorbachev, if you seek peace, if you seek prosperity for the Soviet Union and Eastern Europe, if you seek liberalization, come here to this gate. Mr. Gorbachev, open this gate.
And, of course, he went on to say, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. Stirring words from the man history remembers as the great communicator. President Ronald Reagan was known for his way with words, but a new analysis of his speaking pattern during the 1980s, it is believed, could be pointing to early signs of dementia years before he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. Joining us for an in-depth analysis, our deputy health editor at Newsmax, Nick Tate. Nick, of course, is also the co-author of Da Vinci's Baby Boomer Survival Guide. Nick, tell us about this study. I believe they stressed that President Reagan did not have dementia, but they saw some alterations in his speech.
That's exactly right, J.D. The researchers from Arizona State University found that, in fact, there was no indication that the president had signs of dementia that would affect his judgment, confusion, or memory loss while he was in office. But they looked at transcripts of news conferences, 46 of them that he held over the 8 years of his 2 terms, and they found that there were differences in the way that he spoke. Alterations in speech that may in fact flag that there were changes that were happening in his brain. He tended toward the end of his 2nd term to repeat words. He tended to repeat phrases. He tended to use fewer unique words and simpler language, and he would often turn to terms like, he'd use a non-specific word like thing, this thing or that thing, instead of very specific nouns. And what the researchers are suggesting is that long before he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's in '94, these changes in speech may be the early signs that there are changes happening in the brain that indicate dementia will be coming at some point. And the truth is that as President Reagan was known as the great communicator, and this analysis of his speaking patterns may indeed contribute to greater ability to identify those people in the future who will have Alzheimer's, and it might be an additional part of the Reagan legacy. So,
do you think we're going to see a test or an examination of speech patterns involving those of us as we continue to age?
I do, J.D. You know, anybody who's lived with someone or known someone close who has developed Alzheimer's, there's a tendency to look back in time and identify those things that happened early on. My own father died last year, had dementia, and as we've looked over the course of the last 10 years of his life, we noticed that there were patterns in his speech. He had a hard time finding words and coming up with the right word as early as 10 years before he died. So I think that this is something that a lot of people have had a sense of, and if we can identify a constellation of speaking patterns, phrases that people will use, it will not only allow for early diagnosis, but that will speed treatments. Drugs can be given that prevent, and not prevent, but slow the progress of Alzheimer's. The earlier they're given, the better. Now, these Arizona researchers are now looking at transcripts of other presidents for more evidence of the kinds of phrases and words and speech patterns that can help, and they're even looking at the transcripts of news conferences of NFL players who suffered brain injuries that led to dementia later on. So I do believe we're hot on the trail of something very exciting here.
As you mentioned this, it is worth noting, and it affects us personally too at our house. My mom, who passed away last year, was in a stage of pre-Alzheimer's, but she had some of those medicines, and it seemed that her vocabulary and her recognition of people stayed with her, thankfully, until the day she left us. But obviously, as we tend to live longer, this whole notion of Alzheimer's and senile dementia will continue to occupy us. Nick, we always appreciate it, and also we want to thank you for producing such a great new book for guys our age, the Da Vinci Baby Boomer Survival Guide. You can learn how to survive the financial crisis that awaits baby boomers with this newly released book, and you can find out more by going to this website, babyboomers711.com. That's babyboomers711.com. Our thanks to Nick Tate, and Hour 2 of America's Forum is coming right